welcome to Playwright, a podcast about creating and sharing new ways to play. My name is Ryan Hamann. You can call me H.
And I'm Ryan Quintal. You can call me Q.
This week, have you seen the, I don't even know what it is, that real estate walkthrough that's been making the rounds on Twitter?
What if I told you that my pitch today is all about it?
Great. Well, we can skip this whole intro section and get right to it if you want to.
Wow. We should talk about it for people that haven't seen it. And then I guess this might be our first organic transition into pitch of the show. Yeah, my wife showed it to me. And at first I was very much in the mental camp of, I don't give a crap about this. And then sure enough, the further we got into this walkthrough, the more disturbed I became.
It's all about it's just like frog fraction. Same strategy applies is that it looks pretty mundane until you start going downwards.
Right.
And then things really go off the rails. But, at first, I saw some people posting it around oh, you have to see this 3D walkthrough of this house. It'll blow your mind. And I clicked around a little bit, just kind of around the upstairs, and I was like, it's not obviously well staged for any kind of real estate venture.
It's
but
kind of
it feels more kind of like just, I don't know, maybe just kind of people having a laugh at somebody who's in a real kind of unfortunate place in their life. But once you kind of cross that threshold, it gets pretty wild.
Well,
do you know anything about the backstory, or what is this?
Yeah, Jessica just told me about the backstory today. I guess the home was at one point home to a family that was selling stolen goods as a mini organized crime ring, and they were actually doing it as an Amazon reseller. Then I guess at some point they were, I don't know, arrested, taken away, something happened, and then essentially new people moved in and now are using it to sell legitimately on eBay. So that is the house of maybe the most hardcore eBay setup I've ever seen.
Wait, so the items in the house currently, you can see in the photographs, are legit?
I don't know.
Or did they purchase the house and then everything that was in it came with it and the police didn't confiscate the stolen items?
I'm going to have to send you the article that she read to me.
Okay.
Because
I think if it had been used for selling stolen items before and had since been cleaned out and then reappeared like this, that's too much of a coincidence.
Yeah, it's strange. Yeah, I agree with you. When the opening shot is kind of the mid-level of the house, kind of the kitchen-y living room area, and it already starts out very strange, but the thing that was an immediate flag for me was there are exit signs above the door. Yeah. And I was like, no house needs exit signs. And I guess the backstory, even before any of this happened, is I guess it used to be a church.
Yeah, that makes sense, because it's a big building as well.
Yeah, big building. And you can see there's kind of a kitchen downstairs, so you can imagine kind of a rectory or something.
And there's a walk-in bath as well, so, every church would have.
Which was for baptisms. And
I guess that makes sense, except there's no, audience room.
Right. And so they
have to take the word for it.
they retrofitted it with shower heads, as apparently they replumbed it to have shower heads.
Wow, that's it's brave of criminals to set up in a holy building consecrated by God. You think there would be some sort of turn on the shower head and it might rain out holy water or something, or I don't know does holy water burn criminals, or is that just vampires?
I think it depends on the criminal. But you know what? Maybe this house actually filling that tub up. I think I saw you tweet something about cursed liquids earlier this week. So let's get some moon water in that tub. I'm ready. It looks like it belongs there.
Let's do it. All right. Well, let's. I guess that takes us into our initial pitch. What are you, how are you adapting this strange oddity of life?
So I couldn't help but, as we kind of, I got a tour of this place, I couldn't help but think of it as a really fun type of smash up of sort of Gone Home and almost like Hidden Folks, where, a scavenger hunt, but in incredibly insane hoarder-esque type of places, or places where just everything feels completely inappropriate. There's so many video games, right, where so many of these assets are generated, and they're generated for all these different types of environments. So I think you could very easily, with maybe even pre-existing development assets, create quite upsetting environments like 800 or 8800 Blue Lick Road in Louisville, Kentucky. So I just wanted to ideate with you this week about how could we turn this into a game, because I did find myself thrilled just around every single corner of this place.
All right, let's go ahead and start the clock there then. Gosh, there's I don't know, there's a lot of questions here. So I think one of the things that makes this this home seem so notable, kind of making the rounds on the internet, is obviously the just kind of sheer amount of stuff that's in there, and the fact that it is all explorable, and the fact that it's so kind of non-linear in the way that you walk through it. You know, there's no good way to kind of progress from one end of it to the other. Like, there's rows and rows of boxes and plenty of places to get kind of lost and turned around. Like, I do like that sense of being lost. I like the sense of just this kind of constant collage of stuff everywhere, and thinking that like I might be the first person to have noticed a particular detail about it. How do we kind of carry forward that sense of discovery and of being kind of lost out of our entirely out of our league in this type of situation?
I couldn't, I think now you're starting to see, and games are getting better at this. I imagine we're going to get a lot more of this actually in the next gen with hard drive speeds increasing. But when video games play that trick of you turn around and they've loaded in a new environment behind you, or they've loaded in something new behind you. Horror games, if you're playing any horror games this month, are really good at this trick. I almost wonder, you know, what if there's like kind of a never-ending Sisyphean scavenger hunt in different houses that you go into and are just become randomly generated, because it feels at times after taking enough turns that house like does not have an end in some ways.
Is there a way that we could, I guess, proceduralize that level of mess and disarray?
It's a good question. Or do you have to do the thing where like you've pre-baked a bunch of different combos and you're serving them up randomly? I think what you'd have to have is different procedural rules of like wherever say a bathroom is generated, you're bound to find sort of different objects within its vicinity. So as you explore these environments and you come across something of note, there's ways to understand, okay, objects that I'm looking for, or maybe objects I need to solve a puzzle, are going to kind of be around this space.
I mean, it's almost like a Zelda dungeon, except there's too many items. It's hard to, I mean, this would be like the
that's
nightmare
a Nintendo quality pitch.
This would be like a nightmare home for a point and click adventure, because there would just be too many things to use with everything else.
Yeah, that's actually kind of interesting that you say that, because I imagine, so last night I played some Amnesia, The Dark Descent, which, believe it or not, I've never played before.
Okay.
There's kind of a moment where you kind of knock down or through a piece of wall. And I wonder, like, maybe as you travel deeper and deeper into these homes, and maybe there can be many different types of homes to do it, and then you have different sorts of cursed layouts, but as you get deeper into these homes, maybe you do discover like if you can get to the garden section and find yourself, you know, a good chainsaw or something to knock down some walls, if you can really start to get surreal with it.
There's an aspect of the game Home Flipper in here as well. I would love to play a game that is like one of those, it's kind of like Storage Unit Raiders, you know, those reality shows they put on? Like,
yeah, Storage
Wars.
Wars.
You're just kind of in charge of selling things that you have acquired. Like that seems kind of like a fun challenge as well, like trying to pick through what you think might be valuable. I mean, in video games, it's so easy to sell things. There's not really any reason why you wouldn't just sell everything, but maybe if there was some sort of a incentive, disincentive to try to kind of make you look out for the highest quality items, then you can make some extra cash that way.
Ooh, okay. Now we're starting to get into some gamification here. So what if we gave you a certain time limit or something that you could spend in the house in the same way that those like storage people have to just kind of, they open up the door and you have to look inside and decide whether or not you're going to bid on it. But I when you get down into the basement of this house, you see like 5 copies of a DVD nobody cares about, right? So I like the idea of you being able to sell anything in the house, but if you can collect multiple copies of it, there's like a bonus for the sales if you can sell a lot of the same thing, or if you can potentially collect sets of things. Like if you can find all 5 of these baseball cards, you're going to make $20,000 instead of, $1,000.
Oh yeah, interesting. So I'd imagine that, it becomes harder and harder to sell sets of things the more that you sell, because there are fewer and fewer people that are looking for them.
Yeah.
You could try to kind of set yourself up for success down the line by selling like the first book or movie in a series for a cheap price, so you at least get people watching one and hopefully moving on to number 2, which you're going to sell back for a higher price.
It's also, as we're like smashing games into this, there's almost an creepy element of Moonlighter in this, where can you put all these things on a virtual eBay and have them have people react to this price is too high or too low, right. And you're finding out exactly what the items are worth.
Yeah, I'd love if how does eBay work? If you price too high and nobody bids on your item, the auction just ends, right?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't automatically like deflate in price or anything like that.
Well, it does cost you money to list.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So, and I believe the cost to list is, I don't know if they do a flat fee or if it's a small percentage of the item that you're selling. Like I think like last time I tried to sell an iPad or something for 300 something bucks, eBay wanted, $40 of it or something like that, which seems quite high. I think one last thing that we could kind of make a call on is what does the end and satisfaction look like? Is it cleaning out a house? Is it making a ton of money off a house? Is it just finishing your scavenger hunt?
I mean, I do like a good scavenger hunt. Perhaps you do have to find your way out. Maybe after you find all of the items you're looking for, you unleash some sort of a ghost or something, kind of like a Spelunky situation.
I love the idea.
And then you have to find your way back out again, whether you're kind of following the same path that you took, or so it's a way you have to kind of keep your wits about you.
That's smart. And I think the only way to track your path is to grab in-world objects and either place them in unusual places where you'll get visual markers, or if you can get like you find a coin collection at the beginning, and that allows you to make a breadcrumb trail back to the start.
I always like, whatever system you work out for yourself. There's I think about like certain games where you light torches behind you as you go, and you can always tell when there's a lit torch, you've already been that way. Or I mean, more often than that, it's like if there's enemies in a certain direction, that means you hadn't been there before. Otherwise, you would have bopped them all.
God, that's so funny, the way that we all share this language, thanks to game designers, of like, we know where we haven't been because there are bad guys.
All right, so we can go in, we can collect items, we can get out in a certain kind of time limit, and as long as we can get out, then we can sell those items. I think this is it's kind of like an Indiana Jones type of situation here.
Oh,
you're kind of raiding the temple, you're setting off traps, you're getting out alive, and then you can sell what you find. It's a more literal Tomb Raider than the actual Tomb Raider.
Yeah, assuming you don't get into a hoarder's house and find out an old lady has died and she's just under a pile of books or something. I do like the idea though of, I think because this house is so disorienting and potentially these spaces can be very disorienting, even if they're static. They don't even have to be procedural. If they're just large and winding and static and unusual, you can do something that I think horror games struggle to do, which is create fear without like darkness necessarily, or without ghosts necessarily. Like even Gone Home, like you arrive at night in a house. And I know the new Amnesia game is supposed to be playing with the idea of like, hey, you're in sunlight, but I do like quiet house where everything's muffled because it's so full and you've just got nasty white neon lights everywhere. Ooh, it is, that could be a scary place.
Let's stop the clock there and let's give it a name. I feel like Room Raider gets pretty close to where we need to be, right?
And that's pretty perfect.
Alrighty then. Onto my pitch for the day. This is a game about setting goals. You play through a Mario level with a kind of randomly generated set of enemies and power-ups. I'm thinking somewhat like Super Mario 35, which just came out, where people are kind of sending enemies into your Mario levels, and so you don't know how much you're going to be facing opposition-wise throughout the course. But you have to essentially place a bet at the beginning of each stage on how many enemies you're going to kill, what state you exit the course, whether you're Big Mario, Small Mario, Fire Flower Mario, how fast you complete it, etc. All of these goals need to be accomplished for you to gain points, and I guess you can choose how many or how few of them you wish to kind of raise the stakes on, but it would be kind of a competitive game you play against other people, almost like a game of Mario Horse in a way. So, starting the clock.
This is cool. So, is there like... Mario 64 does this. I don't know if there are other Marios that do this, but you kind of get... I guess maybe Mario Odyssey does this a little bit, but it'd be great if in the initial loading up of a level, you get the camera one pan through, just so you and the group can all get a quick lay of the land before you place your bets.
Yeah, I kind of want there to be like like the number of enemies would be a surprise. So, and I was thinking of this being kind of a 2D thing as well, where, I think it's pretty easy to avoid enemies in 3D. It takes a little bit more skill to kind of weave between them in 2D. If you've realized that you've gotten close to your par already, then you might have to start kind of stepping pretty carefully with each of your jumps.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the density is not necessarily there in the 3D spaces. Although maybe it could be. Maybe that would be in and of itself an interesting new thing of the enemies just suddenly start spawning in very close to you or uncomfortably close to you.
Be like a crowd surfing type of situation. Mario crowd surfing would be a disaster.
Wow. Does Mario have... I thought he does have some kind of, in the 3D world anyway, like a mechanic where he can kind of kick Goombas away from him. Is that a thing? Instead of like killing them?
He can kick them, but in Mario Galaxy, if you like spin into enemies, it'll knock them on their heads, and then they'll be kind of stunned for a little bit. If you follow that up with a kick, then they'll die. But if you don't, then they'll remain alive.
Gosh, Mario, you're so cruel. Okay, well, let's set it back in 2D. We just had Mario 35. Maybe we move up a generation or something and do this. Well, how do you feel about the Super Mario motif in this thing?
About the Super Mario motif?
Just like using the Super Mario potentially as our 2D palette to paint with, because I'm thinking about...
That's what we're talking about, right?
Oh, okay. I thought you were pitching... I specifically mean like Super Mario World.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
It's the whole series of Super Mario.
It's like, yeah, I know about Super Mario, Ryan. You know I know about Super Mario. No, so I'm thinking about like in Super Mario World, some of the mechanics of, sliding down on your butt and knocking out multiple Koopas along the way. But there's a moment in Super Mario World where don't know if it's random or not, because I think maybe I could crack it reliably as a kid. But going back and playing it, I feel like I've lost my magic touch. When you go into those tunnel rooms and there's multiple rows of the 3 question mark blocks. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's a very specific thing here.
Blocks where you can kind of choose to go on the bottom row or kind of walk on top of those and hit more blocks on top.
Yeah, exactly. So there's like 4 kind of rows, and in each row there are 3 question mark blocks, and you have to hit them in the right order, and they will give you
this
an
kind of
extra
bonus
life.
after the level.
Yeah. So I love the idea of having levels interspliced with that sort of thing to to create power-ups and stuff that are bouncing all around, and potentially you only want one of them. Like, imagine placing a bet that you were going to end the level with firepower or something like that, and having to dodge every mushroom in sight.
Yeah, I think that could be fun. And for each kind of question block you hit, like 3 power-ups of different types come kind of shooting out the top, and you have to be kind of real careful about which ones you touch and which ones you avoid. Yeah, I think there's a lot of fun to be had there.
I do. I think what's great about some of the, I guess maybe the original Mario had this as well, right? But Lakitu, whatever his name is, in the cloud. I know in Super Mario World he would throw out enemies. If you hit a certain block, he might throw out coins or power-ups and that sort of thing. So I do love the idea of him showing up, just like the angry sun, to kind of thwart you through a level. Like, oh, you thought you were only going to get 10 coins? Well, I'm going to be throwing out red coins at you, and these are all going to be worth 2 each.
This reminds me of, there's a YouTube channel that I'm sure people know of called Sieve Gaming, where he performs several kind of feats of determination within Mario games. He will kind of post each video as like a challenge to himself. Like, is it possible to beat New Super Mario Bros. U without ever touching a coin, without ever letting go of the duck button, that kind of thing. And it's impressive. It's taking those old games and playing them in a way that obviously wasn't ever intended, but it still makes for like a very compelling challenge, like trying to avoid all of the coins like they were enemies. Like that's a neat, it's kind of a way to get double duty out of some of the assets in the game.
Yeah, and it also, I feel like when people are able to accomplish things like that, you see people do sort of insane stuff like beating, a Dark Souls game with a DDR pad and that kind of stuff. It almost goes to show or highlight how almost perfect some games feel like they're designed in some ways. You're like, wow, I mean, the fact that you were able to contort it and for the thing to still end up working. The Mario thing's even more impressive, right? Because they probably didn't design it for you to never collect a coin or for you to never not be ducking.
You can do it as a kind of a multiplayer challenge thing as well. It's like if you could set a score on a level, the number of coins that you collect, and then the next person would have to collect the exact same number of coins without going over. And maybe there's even bonus points for how quickly that total is reached, because if they reach the total early, then they have to try extra hard. They have to go the rest of the course without ever collecting anything. Like if the previous player had collected 2 coins in the course and you kind of waited until the final screen to collect those 2, then you were pretty safe at that point. You're not taking as much of a risk as if you step straight at the gate, collect the first 2 coins you saw, and then essentially did a no coin run for the rest of the map.
That's interesting. That almost makes me, too, think about the way that Mario Maker kind of embraced a little bit of the multiplayer vibe. And like in the case of the Dark Souls, the person playing with a DDR pad, or the guy never collecting a single coin or never defeating a single enemy to beat a Mario, though that might be other than a Bowser to beat a Mario. I wonder if, adding in the way that the modern Mario, like New Super Mario Brothers U, Switch Plus, whatever, however many words get onto that, the way that having 2 people create this chaos, right, of bumping and moving all around. I wonder if having this be a multiplayer thing is potentially interesting, or if it's infuriating.
This could just be kind of like a sub mode in Super Mario Maker as well. Like, I feel like there's I'm still a little bit disappointed by that sequel. Like, Super Mario Maker 2, like really so many more kind of interesting ways it could have taken this series, and it really didn't.
That should have been the last 2D Mario that I ever really needed to engage with in many ways, and it's not. But we talked about placing bets, so I wonder if you do something a little bit more like a craps table, and you actually can wager coins, an amount of coins, on different outcomes, right? Of, I'm going to do this with enemies, I'm going to get this many coins, I'm going to do this, and this. And you put different coin amounts on there. you maybe start with 100 coins at the end. So this is complicated, but try and follow me through it. When you beat the level, you can kind of go bust, and going bust is actually the game over state.
That's true. If you're you could be wagering lives almost.
Yeah, exactly. And I was thinking more it's going to be wagering coins, and then when you run out of coins, you're done. But I do like the idea of wagering your lives. It kind of feels like it's stepping it up a notch. Although with Mario's, it could be suns or moons or stars or something like that as well.
Let's move on from that and let's give it a name.
Has any of the Mario spin-offs ever been like casino based or gambling based?
I don't think so. I wonder if Nintendo Land even has any kind of Mario Party might have some kind of I think there are slot machine games in Mario Party at some point.
I like the idea of this whole thing being casino themed and Mario in a tuxedo and going around to all the tables, and all the tables are just like different worlds and levels, but the map navigation is, Mario in a casino with a bunch of people smoking.
This could be Italian roulette as well.
Yeah.
Mario Royale is not quite there. So that means something different.
Yeah, in gaming anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
Super Mario Brothers. It's all casinos refer to themselves as gaming too. I wonder if there's something there. I also feel like there's something with put it all on red for Mario.
Red on red.
Red on red.
In the red, is that a thing? Do you want to be, or do you want to be in the black? I think you want to be in the black.
You want to be in the black, but I do like like Mario in the red, which could be his or you could say Mario in the black and he's in a tuxedo on the cover.
Mario in the black. That's kind of funny. And then the sequel would be Mario back in black.
That's right.
That's fun. I like it. I think it's a fun enough image that we can kind of roll with there. Let's head over to the community, get a pitch from outside of the team. We have a pitch from Matt Parker today who says, I've got the name first and the idea. Name, you versus I. Idea? I don't know, maybe an RPG where the menus randomize or move around whilst you are trying to play. And having an antagonistic UI, there could be a command like hit self right next to hit enemy. I'll leave it to you guys. You're the pros. I'll have to have another drink. Cheers. So this is spelled out. Like the letter U versus I, so an antagonistic UI. That's a good idea. Let's see what we can do with it.
And for people who are not in the know, UI, user interface, which is kind of what Matt's talking about here. Or
urethral infection. I'm sure there's lots of ways that we can... this makes me think of some of the mini games in the Yakuza series, especially when you are at the telephone clubs and you're trying to... seduce women over the phone. And there's like conversation prompts. Like they'll say something in a conversation and then there will be 4 responses that you could give. And they all kind of bounce around the screen and you have to like zap the one that you want. But the one that is kind of like the proper conversation prompt is going to be smaller and kind of ducking behind the other responses. Harder to hit without accidentally triggering one that makes you look like a giant jerk.
Oh, that's interesting. I do like the idea of of mechanics where the UI somehow becomes a part of the world or the challenge that you're facing. Mm-hmm. Like the idea of selecting a command and then suddenly you're faced with almost a typing of the dead sort of scenario of having to, you can only attack if you can very quickly boggle locate the word attack in this word puzzle or something like that.
We had spoken pretty early on about a game in which the UI would be kind of integral to the mechanics of the game. Like I was thinking about a game where like a main character gets shot and you could save the character by turning blood off in the options menu.
Oh, yeah.
That kind of thing. That ends up helping out. But like, what are ways that we could hide? I guess this also makes me think of Doki Doki Literature Club. Like there's a lot of stuff in options menus and even in the kind of game files within the game's folder that can have kind of tangible effects in the game world that the game can recognize.
That's interesting. I'm trying to think about, like, Matt talks about in this email here. He says, what if hit yourself becomes right next to hit the enemy? I do like the idea of, I think we've maybe all had a moment with a virtual assistant or maybe even just a user interface that is heavily suggesting that you do something. Maybe it's one of those tutorial screens when you first log into a piece of software and they're like, hey, let me give you a tour. And you're like, I don't need you, you stupid thing. That is technically you being in conversation with the interface, right? And so I do like the idea of playing with the idea of an interface that really suggests that you do something. And the more you don't take its suggestions, the less it sort of likes you and participates with what you want.
Yeah, so it could be, let's see. I was thinking, because interface is obviously, it's something that kind of exists on top of some other type of program, if you're it itself, like you would need to have some sort of game underneath it for this to work. But I'm just trying to think of, like, it'd be fun to have like a clippy office assistant type of character, but I don't know what type of framing device to use to contextualize what him or what any kind of, what this UI puzzle would overlay on top of.
What if your UI was a little bit like a Tamagotchi pet? And every time you go into the menus, it's the equivalent of, in the way Monster Hunter wants you to sharpen your sword, right? Like imagine your interface, your menu system is a tool and it can get dull over time and you need to actually go in and care for this. I'm recognizing how unfun this sounds as it comes out of my mouth. But anyway, I'm going to keep pushing on and see if it becomes something. But you have to care for this interface. And maybe you have to go in and every once in a while, like, it wants you to give it a fresh coat of paint. Like, honestly, it's so small and stupid, but I probably spent a ton of time throughout the campaign of something like Final Fantasy VII going in and saying, now that I'm out of Midjar, I think I really want to change the background gradient here. I'm kind of in this open world. There's a different vibe happening. And so I would engage with all of that stuff so much.
It would be kind of fun if every time you click something in the UI, it ends up kind of chipping away at the paint or kind of dislodging the buttons. So if there are kind of commands that you use more often than others, then those buttons are going to fall off and you're going to have to perhaps kind of exist without those commands for a little while until you can get to some sort of a garage to fix it.
Yeah, and imagine being beaten so bad in battle that when you go back into your menu system after you're defeated or if you win by the skin of your teeth, that your UI is just knocked around all over the place. You're like, oh my gosh, what order was this menu in again? I don't even remember.
Yeah.
Or the next time, like, you're going to have your potions right next to your attack button or something.
That's funny. And everything would have to be kind of time-based attacks as well. And so you would be incentivized to move quickly and to not kind of check your work every single time. So having to remember what goes where. It's almost kind of like I've been playing a lot of Mini Metro over the past few days. And I think there's a bit of that, trying to remember where all the different stations are without having to constantly kind of check so you can make sure to hook up everything that needs to be hooked up. I do like those types of memorization games where, you do have to remember a fair amount.
Yeah, and there's something to, like, inviting someone to become flexible. Like, if you don't go in and clean up the UI or take your little repair tool and, like, fix your fonts or something, like, slowly that command is just, it becomes broken in battle, right? Where, different RPGs have done this, right? Where maybe a spell is cast on you and it simply disables an ability, and then therefore the menu command is disabled, and that's because of something the enemy did. But maybe there's also atrophy in skills, or like, imagine how much it would change Pokemon to have all of your skills have a certain PP number, and the second that the PP's gone, like, your you're done. Like that move's gone. Sorry, no more Thundershock for Pikachu. You're gonna have to find something else.
I guess it becomes almost like a Nuzlocke run of UI options. Gosh, I mean, ultimately, like it would be kind of the best joke to make the quit function also limited use, but that's very unfriendly towards users.
I thought you were going to suggest something else that would actually be, I think, pretty funny to me, which is if you don't take care of that UI, quit will just be inside of your battle commands. Like, you'd be like, oh, wait a minute, did I pick quit or quick? Oh my God. And it just goes back to the start screen.
That's pretty good too. It reminds me of in Smash Bros. When you're playing as Hero, you have you're obviously in the heat of a kind of tense, quick one-on-one battle, but you have that attack that brings up the menu that you can select one of 4 choices from, and it's always random, like which attacks are a part of that lineup, and you have to just kind of know the shape of the word you're looking for because there's not enough time to read everything and to really process and understand.
Yeah, I like that. And if you had some mechanic that was almost hearkening to some of what they did with, what's the game I'm thinking of? Rogue Legacy, where you have different characters that maybe one character doesn't quite know how to read, and so all the words kind of look like nonsense. And
that's a good idea as well. So let's wrap this up in the final few seconds and see if we can kind of come up with a something that can tie this all together. So we have I think we're kind of liking a turn-based RPG type of game with a timer component on, so kind of like an active time turn-based system, and then potentially something that has kind of roguelite elements as well. So you could get that randomization of character and disabilities as well.
Ooh, and I've got one last flourish for you. Mm-hmm. Your characters can steal, like in some turn-based RPGs, but the thing that they steal are like nouns and verbs from other characters.
Wow, that becomes complicated. There's a game called Counterfeit Monkey, which is a really fascinating title. It's a text-based adventure game, but you have a device that can add or remove letters. Maybe it just removes. It has some sort of a transformation to the letters of basically the names of everything around you. And so it's gonna be hard to come up with an example. If you just, so you could translate, to take from the title, you can translate money into a monkey or something like that. And then you have to solve, the game's puzzles using a pretty robust kind of multiple solution, well written and well accounted for system of rather kind of open-ended discovery in that way. Huh. But anyways, that's some further reading for people who are interested in that. For now, let's, I guess we already have a name for this one. This is You versus I.
You versus I.
Thank you very much, Matt Parker, for sending that one in. If you would like to submit a video game pitch of your own, you can do so by going to playwrightcast.com/pitch. You can email us, playwrightcast@gmail.com, or you can tweet us @playwrightcast.
Special thank you to PROTODOME for the use of our theme song, Hello World, off the album Blue Noise. And while you're listening to things, you should go check out the great shows on the Cane and Rinse network, like Cane and Rinse, like The Sausage Factory, like Sound of Play. You know what I'm actually doing, H? I'm making a playlist on Apple Music that's on my public little profile there of all the tracks I've ever brought to the show, and I gotta get back on that show sometime soon.
We can make that happen.
Yeah, do you know anyone?
I'll put in a good word.
Awesome.
Anyways, let's close out with a redacted game. I think you are the one presenting today.
I am. Okay. Today's redacted game. An open world with no rules, only redacted. Redacted is an ever-changing redacted game set in the redacted, catastrophic redacted has left your redacted overrun by redacted. While the majority perish or redacted, you have learned to flourish. It turns out that your calling isn't picking up redacted or serving redacted. It is redacted. This is a long description. With an arsenal of redacted weapons and a knack for redacted the city with redacted, it's not redacted for you. Your story has only begun. There's a lot of redaction in there.
Okay. Okay, so it sounds like some sort of a storm is blown through or something like that kind of disrupts the natural order and perhaps rises someone to power that wouldn't have had it otherwise.
I would say that is a mostly true statement.
Okay. I guess when I'm thinking about open worlds and I'm thinking about storms blown through, is this Just Cause 4?
This is not a Just Cause game.
Okay.
Would you like some awards? Or do you want to take another stab? It is the number 21 best game of its platform of 2014.
Okay.
But it is the number 4 most discussed game of its platform of 2014 and the number 1 most shared game of its platform of 2014. It's interesting.
14. I have a game in mind. It might be 2014 might be too early for it though. Could you read maybe the description's really long. Could you read portions of it that might be you can skip bits that are just obviously set dressing?
Yeah. Redacted is an ever-changing redacted game set in the redacted. I know that's not helpful, but maybe this one is. A catastrophic event has left your redacted overrun by redacted. While the majority perish or redacted, you've learned to flourish. It turns out that your calling isn't picking up redacted or serving redacted. It's redacted.
See, that's the most interesting part to me is like your calling is not picking up blank or serving blank. So it makes it sound like I was a kind of a lowly member of society before. Like these, you're no longer picking up trash or serving food, you know?
That was so good. I'm going to let you know that that's exactly those two redacted words.
Wow. All right. Oh gosh, I wish that helped a little bit more.
I was debating whether or not to redact those, but I think in your with your timely chant that you deserve those words. Turns out your calling isn't picking up trash or serving food. It is redacted.
Okay. Let's see what game. Okay, I'm going to guess again. It doesn't really fit the ever-changing aspect of it, but how about Sunset Overdrive?
Ding, 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 ding.
Hey.
I thought there was some transformation in that city at some point.
I think you could do like kind of like in Tony Hawk levels where you can do something that changes it like once. But I wouldn't really like call that necessarily ever changing.
Well, yeah, I guess there's also like bases that you build up with like you spend some money on or whatever. The full description: in an open world with no rules, only riots. Don't ask me why I redacted that. Sunset Overdrive is an ever-changing open world game set in the not so distant future. A catastrophic event has left your city overrun by mutants. While the majority perish or transform, is one of those redacted words, you have learned to flourish. You're not going to pick up trash or serve food. Your calling is mutant destruction with an arsenal of, and I felt like I redacted these next two words because I felt like it was too descriptive, with an arsenal of kick-ass, overpowered weapons and a knack for traversing the city with hyper agility. It's not the end of days for you. Your story has only begun.
Nice. I was thinking Mad Max as well, but that doesn't quite fit in with the whole serving food.
Yeah. Although Max certainly doesn't. I thought the awards were actually really interesting on this, right? Because it's kind of 21 best Xbox game of the year. Okay, sure, I could see that. But I think Sunset Overdrive is just, I mean, gosh, it's Insomniac, right? It holds a special place in my heart for sure.
Yeah, it's a cool game. It's one that I enjoyed my time with, but not enough to finish it. If that makes any sense. I think I kind of got probably 2/3 of the way through, and then I just kind of had enough.
Yeah, totally. And it's one of those. That was kind of 2014 was sort of an era where it was becoming very, very common for most of these single-player games to tack on stuff afterwards with DLC and all these things, and I've never developed the habit of going back to a game to play DLC unless I really like Mortal Kombat. I did because I was like, I know 2 hours and I'll be out or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it makes me wish I was more into revisiting games for the expansion content that they made.
Very cool. Well, that will do it for us this week. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll catch you again next time.
Bye.